Welcome. These sessions will be recorded. I'm pleased that you could join us for the Business Education and Resilience webinars with 1917. My name is Pauline Marquardt, and I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, which is made up with members with common interests and concerns related to the business environment in the Bowie area. It is the primary professional trade organization in the Greater Bowie area dedicated to the protection, enhancement, and success of business in Bowie community. The Bowie COVID-19 Business Recovery Assistance Program delivers online technical assistance to help Bowie businesses accelerate their post-pandemic economic recovery. This program is a collaboration between the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce and the Bowie Business Innovation Center and funded by the City of Bowie. During this webinar, it is best to be comfortable with your video on. Remember to mute yourself. Please ask questions through the chat unless otherwise directed. Welcome, William Eric Lindsay, Senior Business Counselor of 1917.
Good evening, Pauline. How are you? How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, great. Thumbs down, no? Everyone thumbs up. All right. So thank you, Pauline, for that introduction. So I just want to do a really brief introduction to what we're all about. So as Pauline mentioned, this is a webinar series on business education and resiliency webinars. So I'm the owner and senior business consultant of 1917 LLC, and we do business coaching and business consulting. So before I really get into the presentation, I just want to say thank you to the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, to Pauline and the team over at the Chamber for just selecting myself, my company, and my team to present to the attendees this evening. We worked really hard in putting a great program together so that one thing builds upon the other. So I definitely want to say thank you to the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce for selecting me and my team. So as Pauline mentioned, this is the Business Education and Resiliency webinar based on the pandemic and based on the COVID recovery. This is a two-section series, and each section has 12 webinars for a total of 24 webinars. This is actually session 8, not session 7. This is actually session 8. Session 7 was last week. And what we've done is we took a programmatic approach. So one webinar builds upon the other. So our very first webinar was about goal setting, and we moved all the way through business planning, financial statements, financial literacy. We went into a little bit of QuickBooks, and now we're getting into something very specific tonight about the food industry and how to sort of pivot and shift within the food industry. So this is going to be a really exciting webinar. So just ask a lot of questions. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be fun. This is your webinar. So we also had a few updates on the PPP and the EIDL program. We had a SBA representative about 2 weeks ago who came on and talked about updates to the PPP and the EIDL program. And he will be back again in the second part of the second section of the webinars. And our grand finale is going to be on July 15th. We'll do a pitch your business competition. So it's actually 25 webinars that we're doing. And, out of the 24, it's all education, it's all fun, it's all sharing of ideas. And the last webinar, the 25th webinar, is really about just having everyone who went through this program, you come back and you pitch your business. And we will be selecting the first place winner. You'll receive a wonderful prize. Don't ask what the prize is. It's a surprise. You got to show up. You got to participate. You got to get it done. You got to do a really good job. And I'm sure all of you will. And then we'll just select a winner and who will receive. It's a pretty cool prize. So one of my other colleagues, we're putting together a very nice package. And it's meant to grow your business. So I'll give you a clue as to what that is. So having said that, we're talking about a business pitch. So my pitch for you tonight, or my ask, is just do this one thing. Sign up for the remaining webinars. Sign up for all the webinars and return. Share this information with your friends and family, with your colleagues, your business owner friends, even someone who may want to start a business. Just share this series with folks. We're on every Thursday from 5 to 7. And we have the second section coming up, I think in April, March, in April. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Carolina Gomez. She's a really great colleague of mine. She's a good friend of mine as well. I've known her for I think seven or 8 years now. She's one of the experts in the food industry in Washington D.C. And she actually does a lot of food in the DMV, Maryland, you name it, Florida, New York, West Coast, you name it. She's been all over the place. She has a lot of experience in the food industry. Um, she's very well educated. I know her really well, so I'm just going to keep talking about her. But anyway, so without further ado, Carolina, go ahead and take it over. So we'll definitely look forward to your presentation tonight.
Thank you so much, Coach. I call him Coach because I've known him for so many years. And when we first met as consultants, he introduced himself as Coach, and he did become, someone that I looked at as a consultant to learn from as far as consulting. My name is Carolina Gomez. I'm a chef. I'm born and raised here in DC. And my background really comes more from the chef side. I started in the culinary industry at Restaurant Nora, where I kind of worked from the ground up in every single position that a restaurant has to offer in the kitchen and in the front of house. And I went to the Culinary Institute of America, and I studied hospitality management and restaurant management. And then I came here to DC and I opened my first business, which was a very busy deli, which if you've ever watched The Deli Man, is a documentary about it. It's like notoriously one of the most difficult types of businesses to own because it's actually just super busy. And we did a lot of sandwiches, lots of wholesale as well, because we cured and aged our own meats. And then I started in the world of consulting because I was very young when I opened my deli. I was 20 and I had my education and I had my experience, but I had big unknowns as to where, what to do sometimes. The restaurant industry has tons of curveballs, and the best type of experience that you can have in the food industry is actual hands-on experience and learning to pivot. So that kind of brings me to what we're going to talk about today, which is about surviving and thriving in the food industry and how to pivot and recognize opportunity. So now that we know kind of what we're going to be talking about, I actually want to hear from you. And I'm going to go around and ask you just very simply in like a 2-word response, what type of food business do you have? So I'm going to start with iPad 3. I don't know what your name is, so tell me your name, please.
Hi there, my name is Celso Pastran, and I do not have any business myself, but I'm a big fan of restaurants, culinary schools in general. Right now, I'm more interested to know what you're offering because I work with a lot of restaurant owners. I do credit card processing, POS systems, and payroll. So half of my portfolio is restaurant owners. So I'm just here to find out all the great things that you are going to talk about. My name is Celso, by the way.
Thank you, Celso, so much. Thank you. And Veronica, what type of business do you have?
I'm the store manager at Starbucks at Free State location.
Okay, thank you. I love Starbucks. All right. And Monique.
So I don't have a restaurant, but I'm very much interested in the information given today.
Okay, thank you. Just if you have any specific questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Whenever we go over the question and answer, you might have something that might pop in your head as far as what kind of food businesses might be in your mind. So Kim, what's your food situation? I'm going to change it, I thought.
I am the chef and owner of a catering company called Hayward's Private Chef and Catering.
Okay, great. I love that. I love the chef and owner combination. It's
Yeah.
very special, really important. All right, Angela, I know what kind of business you have, but go ahead and share that with everybody.
Well, we have a specialty food business. We sell spices, herbs, and teas, whole spices, whole teas, but we focus on our proprietary blends.
Thank you. All right, and Dave, and the volume.
is he having a problem with the
Oh,
unmute button? Yeah.
It's okay. You can type it in the chat so we know what kind of business you have. And so Luis Adolfo, what kind of business do you have?
Hi, everybody. I'm doing double duty here. My business in the food industry is catering,
Oh,
based out of Frederick, Maryland. And my other hat is I'm a SBDC counselor in Annapolis.
oh, okay, great. I think I just.
Yeah, we're gonna meet.
Yeah. So your catering, do you do mostly a private wedding or a corporate?
The more 2019, we were doing both.
Okay, great.
It was easy to do corporate during the week and weddings on the weekends. But as soon as, pandemic hit and everything got canceled, there's no corporate pretty much going on. And my wedding portfolio basically moved to this year. So we're pretty dormant right now. But unlike brick and mortar catering businesses, I don't have that. I actually have a shared kitchen that I pay a membership. So my overhead right now is very low to be pretty much doing not much. Okay.
You are just like in the right place at the right time right now. I'm so
I
excited.
didn't have to do anything with
Started
this.
with this presentation.
It didn't have to do anything with my brain. It just, like you said, I was at the right place at the right time, but I do see how hard it is to, those larger catering companies that have many people on their payroll and paying rent and all this stuff to make it through. So
Thank you. And then we have a phone number here.
Hey, Kathy, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, I'm Kathy Martin. I'm Director of Sales and Catering for the Comfort Inn in Bowie, Maryland. And I'm just doing what I can with what I have. But, we're only allowed to take 25%. And it's like 37 people. So I'm doing small events, whatever I can take.
Okay, great. So, all right, I wanted to ask you all, what types of food businesses you had, because really there's such a spectrum to food businesses. There's hundreds and hundreds. I mean, there was actually one of my English teachers at the Culinary Institute of America, Irina Chalmers, wrote a book called 101 Food Jobs. And they're just an insane amount of types of food jobs. You can be, a caterer, you can be a restaurant, you can have a distributable good like potato chips, packaged brownies, energy bars. You can even, part of the food and beverage or service industry. So then you also have like juices and, sauces and vinaigrettes. Food, there's such a broad spectrum. So what I want to talk about today is about the food industry and the pandemic. So we're in a pandemic right now. That's why we're here. We're all going to kind of talk about it. So, I just want to talk about the elephant in the room. This is what this is for. And I might, bring a lot of energy to the room, but it's because we need that energy. We need to be able to see that there's a huge array of opportunity right now in the food industry, because as an industry, we're facing a shift. And there's so many factors that are contributing to the change in the way restaurants do business, the way caterers do business, the way hotels can appeal to customers and maybe bring them in, and how you procure contracts even. So there's so many changes right now that didn't used to exist. So I'm going to share a slide real quick, because I prepared a slideshow, even though I'm not, don't love always sticking to them, because I like to go with the flow of the conversation. But even so, I'm going to share this. So did the pandemic create pivoting opportunities? So I just told you the answer, which is yes, it did. But Veronica, I see you're shaking your head like yes. So if you're comfortable with it, could you tell me in what way has the pandemic created that opportunity for you?
As far as the business for Starbucks, we have definitely evolved. We went from a cafe where you could sit inside, then we had to modify our operations where it was just grab and go, which was just mobile order and pay. You pick up at the door. Then we rotated into where you can actually come in, order, and do mobile order and pay, and then you have to exit, which is kind of where we are currently at the moment. We still don't have indoor seating, but you just kind of have to evolve with the changing of the times. And so I know for me, we've done so many changes over this last year, but you have to do what you have to do.
And when you do those changes, there are kind of a set thought processes, I think, that you probably go through when you're going to make those changes.
Correct.
So what things do you ask yourself when you have to make those shifts?
Well, how many customers are you getting? We fall highly on the science and the science aspect of it with COVID guidelines as to how many customers you can have, what the rate of COVID cases are. We really follow facts and science pretty much as to keeping our partners safe as well as our customers.
Thank you so much for that answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to simplify it, I just want to say that the question that I ask is, what do I have to work with? So what do I have to work with? So you have factors that you have to contend to, and you have to look at what infrastructure you have right now to work with. So I use this example, this slide a lot, kind of explaining that a business is a machine, and every piece of the machine is like a body part. It's very necessary. It's something that you absolutely need in order to keep the machine running in a healthy way. So your operators, I guess your admin team, or if you're the CEO, you're the brain. You're the one that is kind of leading. Every action has a reaction. So you're trying to figure out what decisions to make, because you have to get all of the bones, which would be the infrastructure that you have. You have to get that to work with the blood of the business, the blood being the motor oil. The blood is the money, basically. So it's money. The blood is the money of the business. And in the pandemic, I bet we've all discovered this, we all know this, but one truth that is you can't negotiate this. There's no denying that marketing is important for businesses during the pandemic. That's one thing that is very important that I think that everybody knows. But from working with many businesses, I can say that I don't know if, well, how do you feel about that actually? Who wants to answer? How do you feel about when I say that, when I show you that picture that I just showed you right now? No one? Is it a picture that you've seen before many times? Have you seen something, you know, this illustration many times before? I can't see all of your faces with my, when I share my screen, so I keep taking it out. But does this make sense to you? So I'm gonna kind of pick on you, Angela. What do you think about this picture? You're muted.
Okay, got it. Well, you know, it tells a story that for the machine to work, you need money, and it indicates all the things that you need. So I believe, yes, it does take all of these things to equal to come to your outcome. So your messaging, I assume these people to the left, the machine is a customer base. And then, you know, it takes money to make these things happen. And one thing sort of depends on the other. It's hard to get over to the dollars and cents that are on the screen if you don't have all of those pieces working together and, you know, fitting together in some way.
Okay, so thank you for that answer. And yeah, my point in that is something that, you know, everybody knows, is that you have to pay for marketing, you have to do your marketing, and if you do marketing, it'll drive more sales, right? But there's a lot of marketing going on, right? Everyone's doing the same kind of marketing, you know, so how do you differentiate yourself? How do you take what you have and your resources and differentiate yourselves? We're at a point of pivoting, or we have to identify opportunities. So I'm going to kind of pick on Luis Adolfo because he has a catering company and I have a lot of experience in catering. And so I'm going to kind of look at that infrastructure. So for a catering company, you said you have a kitchen, right? So you have a kitchen and you have, do you have equipment already? You have equipment, you have a kitchen.
Well, the way that I have it, like I said, in 2019, we were very successful. So we were starting to think about having our own space, our own kitchen and things like that. But we ended up staying with the arrangement that we have, which is a shared kitchen, okay? So the shared kitchen has basically most of the equipment that we need. Whatever they don't provide, then we'll bring it, you know, when we do need the kitchen. But it is one of the things that a lot of these empty shelves are doing now, is trying to make it into a shared environment, and that's what I decided to stick with rather than risk it at this time.
And I think that was an excellent answer because you actually did pivot. You recognized opportunity. People need right now shared kitchens. There's actually a big influx of businesses that are starting to open that are looking for spaces in which they can produce. And when it comes to, you know, sometimes you might ask yourself, well, why would I give them my space if I'm looking for those types of contracts as well? You know, if I'm a catering company, would I subcontract or let someone use my kitchen, or would I go for those contracts myself? So that's something you have to kind of think about, you know. Should you invest in your marketing and in your sales team and have them have a dedicated list of products and have them go out there to the purchasers or to the places to identify contracts to bring you the sales that you need in order to fully utilize your space and grow? Or should you identify, or what if somebody identifies you and says, I have sales, I'm marketing my own small business or micro business, I need a kitchen, and they're already doing that. So would it be more profitable for you or better for you when you look at your cost benefit analysis as far as what your labor costs might be going into going into marketing the place? What's better for you? So you're kind of in an interesting place in a catering company because of that. So what I mean to say when I'm kind of connecting all of these dots is to say that you have all of these resources. You have different opportunities that different people are seeking. And is what's stopping you from getting the sales, the type of sales that they're doing? Is it not wanting to put together a sales team and have them go out because you think that might not be as effective? Or yeah, what that I don't know if that was a clear question, but that's basically my question is, do you want to work with smaller places, or are you just kind of on pause and you're just going to try to ride out the pandemic with the people using that and then with the smaller catering?
I'm assuming you're asking to me, right?
Yeah.
Number one, I think that with the shared kitchen, there are other caterers that use that kitchen. And honestly, I don't see them as my competition. We all do different style of cooking and we offer different types of service. Personality, it's part of what we sell. You know, the customer has to be, you know, okay with us. So if they don't like me, they'll go with them. Well, you know, it's my fault, not my business. For my particular situation, due to the fact that all my partners are, you know, family, and we all have our day jobs, we decided to just respond to business rather than to go out and get it right now. My personal feeling is that, again, there are people that are doing catering full time, unlike me, and they deserve the shot to go and get as much business as they can. I'll catch up later. That's just my personal thing. Okay.
And that is actually a very, very valid point. When you have a business, and all of you know this because you're all business people, is understanding, you know, are you in a point to where you're going to dedicate that energy to growth? Or are you going to do you have a job? And so this business is something that you're kind of not fully leaning on. So you're okay with keeping it at that level, which is something that's fine. But it is a business. So you do have the option to hire someone that's a general manager who can kind of do that administration and still achieve a certain amount of growth. But I'm not going to keep talking about that as much because that's going to get me into a whole nother rabbit hole. But that kind of has to do with another slide that I have here that I'm going to pull up right now. This is something that actually I still want to go over. This slide is about the customers that come into your establishment. So we're going to talk about that, but I'm going to jump over to this slide, which is typically when I'm speaking to customers, because they're food businesses, you have many levels. You have your startups, and then you also have a franchise like your Starbucks, or you have your catering company. You have all kinds of different levels and different types of food businesses. So I'm trying to be very general with this. But when it comes to growing your business, it's about identifying the opportunity. So, Luis has a choice as to whether or not he's going to go for the opportunity. He chose to say, I have this opportunity to keep it going here, but I have the opportunity to let other people and give them as much, business as they want to have, right? But that's a choice. And today I'm kind of focusing on growth. So I'm actually gonna go with, no, I'm just going to talk about the next point, which is in restaurants. And for this, it's kind of like this, I want to say, even though there aren't restaurant owners here in this Zoom today, but because this is recorded, I think that it's very important. And Veronica might already know about this because she works for Starbucks. But the importance of the POS system, the point of sale system, and gathering all of those emails that you get and all of the phone numbers of whoever comes into your establishment and gathering that data is very important. As I said, I'm a restaurant consultant. I work with many restaurants that are actually at the smaller level. And I like working with them. But I do find that a common factor or a common problem is that they're not gathering, whenever they're using the POS systems, they're not gathering the emails of their customers that are coming in. So there's no real ability to do emailing lists or even having people, follow you on social media and those channels. If you have the emailing list, you can do email blasts, you can include your social media, and you can have more followers, right? And you can also try to figure out who's your demographic because you're gathering their data. So I didn't want to skip over that. I know that we don't have that many restaurant people here, but that actually applies in many other platforms. So as you build your, online store, or as you build your catering, for example, the Comfort Inn, that's a good one. If people are coming in, when's your system from? Is it a little outdated? Because maybe it's not outdated, but are you able to gather people's emails, and are you allowed to? And do you do email blasts? And how frequently do you do email blasts?
I do email blasts as soon as I'm updated on what we can do. Like if the county says we can have more people, I let everybody know that I can do that. And
Okay,
if it goes down, then I have to go down. I'm just doing whatever I can.
great. So when you're doing those email blasts,
Mhm.
something that's very important to focus on when you're doing those email blasts, because you get actually blasted with emails all the time. Like customers, you'll sign up for something, they ask you to sign up with your email, and that kind of gets old. But differentiating yourself within the email, I think that's a very, very important rule that sometimes smaller businesses might not do. I don't know if you do it, but doing kind of informational or graphic or interactive type emails, like videos or something that proves that your product is whatever you want to convey to the customer. Is it fun? Is it, especially with an event at a hotel, you're probably not just going to list the text about it. You want to probably show kind of an informational video or something very visual to captivate the consumer.
Mhm.
So with hotels right now, especially, selling an experience is very important. Selling, like, people want to be able to go somewhere where they're going to relax, where it's going to be leisurely, where they can take pictures. So having those sorts of visual rooms, like I like to call them, or decorating, corners, or having those things for selfies and all that.
Yeah.
That's all very trending right now. And if you have like a mural or a piece of art or something original or cool, a lot of the times it'll attract people. But the quality of the food is very important. The quality of the food is key, because people know good food. That's very, it's so competitive. The food world is so competitive. that we're becoming a more discerning consumer, but we still want to have a lower price to pay. So we don't want to pay as much, but we're more discerning. So how do you balance that? You have to. There's not really a choice. I know that, the Comfort Inn and Starbucks of the world, and even probably Luis, they know about doing their food cost, and they know about that, right? So that's really important. But the smaller businesses, this is why I always kind of stress to you that you have to know your food cost. Because as you grow, you're going to sell in higher quantities, and you're going to have also higher overhead. You're going to have more staff. You're going to have a bigger place. You're going to have just more rent, more whatever, fees, blah, blah, blah. So how do you use your product to be able to sustain all of that? So that's why when you're a micro business, like some of you don't even have a business yet, knowing that cost at the genesis of the business and developing a product that you can scale, that can have the profitability that you need in order to do that, is very important at the micro level, so you can get to that Starbucks and that Comfort Inn, right? But that's not really about, that is kind of about identifying in an opportunity in the pandemic. And it is kind of about pivoting your business, because I'm trying to open up a few different ideas and trying to see that if you're a small business or a larger business, how can you use your current infrastructure for something that people are buying or people need? Yeah.
Caroline, I'm sorry. I didn't see, I was looking for a raise hand button, but I wanted to just really plus what you're saying and to jump back to the POS system. So yes, we are a spice and tea company. However, we had a concession, which has been closed for 11 months at the at one of the sporting and event centers in DC. So the POS system really provided support to us because we were able to use the analysis that we get from it with every event. So it helped us in these ways. People say, well, what's your top seller? So we absolutely hands down knew what we were selling the most of at the arena. We also knew the days of the week, and this was very helpful for us money-wise, the days of the week that people ate more heavier food versus some fries, etc. So on Sunday, apparently people ate before they came to the games. And so they would get snacky things, the popcorn, the fries. On Fridays, people were very hungry, apparently, because they ate a lot of things. So how did this help with now? When we looked at having to really go deeper of online sales, because we also did not have a bricks and mortar, and that bricks and mortar situation tied to Aramark was and is gone for now. We were able to see, what are people enjoying? What are they liking? What are we selling the most of? What are the fastest sales? And those are the things that we decided to really, really promote on the e-commerce side. And also, as you know, those are some of the things that we've decided to research: mass producing, selling wholesale, perhaps getting a co-packer, and that data, those analyses were things that helped us make the decision of what to go with first.
Thank you so much for that, Angela, because that is very important. That's something that different very large companies are very much recognizing, such as Sweetgreen knew about this. They identified this years ago when they decided to start taking people's, and really they created a whole customer profile to try to gather their habits, to be able to tailor, see, what are my customer habits? What do they like? What are they kind of modifying? And how can I have that data and translate into a new menu item? that will be more popular. So that really goes into the power of data. And that's very important. Data combined with marketing is just, it's very solid. Business is all about risk. You're taking a risk no matter what decision you're making. But data, it backs it up. It gives you reasons as to why you're making decisions. So this is something that you might hear a lot. I hear it all the time in podcasts and, on the news and all types of places. But I really want to stress that, especially for the smaller businesses and the larger businesses that are already collecting that data. People like new products. That's something that is very important too. I think that maybe our consumers get bored sometimes. So it's actually difficult to, in the hospitality industry, do what we're doing right now, because we're not a big connector between the food industry and the consumer is that person-to-person interaction that we no longer really have. So whenever we're developing a product, how are we connecting to our customer? Or what extra thing are we doing that's special or unique? That's kind of the unknown. So whenever it comes to developing, I'm going to make this marketing decision. So I have a marketing decision that I want to make. I have this product that I'm going to reach out to my customer with, and I want to sell it to as many customers as I can. I like to go into online portals and try to identify and target places where my customers are going. So depending on your demographic, you might market in different platforms and be a little bit more targeted in your marketing, as well as doing the search engine optimization. That's something I would really recommend. It's something that I've learned through experience. I don't know if there's data behind it, but I will say that if I were to research it, I could find it. I'm gonna share it in my next webinar. But finding those forums, if you're looking at your clientele and you see that your clientele, you want to sell weddings this year, and then there's a forum of brides to be, make sure that you're there on that page. Treat this like before we had as much of the virtual world, I had more of like the in-person brick and mortar world. I used to go to like a certain kind of bar if I wanted to, place an ad, or a certain kind of coffee shop. And then I'd stick it on the bulletin board because I knew that my type of customer went to that coffee shop or they went to that bar. So kind of similar, but now it's online. So if you do like, let's say, a specialized catering, like I'm going to use me as an example. Let's say I'm very good at Italian food and I like Italian food. Sell to a place where Italian people go. Go to their forum, go to their website, and see if you can, do a more targeted marketing effort. And those are all kind of classic marketing lessons, but right now in the virtual world, looking up those forums is very important. So is there anyone with any other questions? I know I'm being very general today, and I'm trying to hit many angles here. So is there anyone with any question that I can help you with?
Yeah, there's a few comments and a couple questions in the chat. I'll just read them off. Earlier, someone said they're talking about the virtual cooking classes. So when people do they do email blasts for special events, holidays, and virtual cooking classes. Let's see, a couple of questions. One is Team Kitchen. Where can you find a Team Kitchen? You want to handle that, and then I can move on to the next question?
Yeah, finding a Team Kitchen right now is very interesting. So there are many commercial kitchens in different communities, but a lot of them are getting over full. So they're actually pretty booked out, but you can look for those commercial kitchens. But networking is really important. For example, there are other people, kind of like Luisa's situation, where they have commercial kitchens that you can go in and do a negotiation and see if maybe you can rent some time from their kitchen, which is a commercial kitchen. So that's both about networking, but then also about looking up commercial kitchens. But right now, and what I know, as far as all the commercial kitchens that I work with in the area, they're pretty packed. So I just wanted to say that and just make sure that you know that if you drive around and you try to identify a place, I recommend negotiating directly with the person with the commercial kitchen.
And that actually led to a similar question. Someone said they were looking for a shared kitchen in Alexandria, Virginia, but due to the COVID, the landlord sold the property. So it's pretty much along the same thing. Another comment was we do surprise and delights to area businesses. So they pivot on opportunities to have them come to their third place, which is kind of cool. They do samples and free coffees. That's pretty cool, Veronica. Yeah. Let's see. So again, Veronica, we find that anything that has a picture partnered with data are big sellers. So for us, if you have a picture, people see it and order it, whether in person or on the app.
Great.
Let's see.
So I kind of wanted to add, why didn't I talk about PPP today? Or why didn't I talk about different grants that you can apply for today? I work with the SBDC as well. And I can say that there's a lot of, there are lots of programs out there for you. But when I'm giving a webinar, when I'm speaking to you, I'm doing it knowing that there's a pandemic and there are barriers to those entries that you're already getting information about from other places. For example, this is a webinar that's had, I believe last one was about applying for PPP and doing those things. That's something that those options exist, but I kind of like to talk about when you don't have that as an option or in conjunction with that option, right? But financial management, financial planning, everybody knows is very key in growing a business. And for that, seeking assistance with your business plan is pretty crucial. So if you needed help with that and you're a micro business and you need help, you need some coaching one-on-one, you can find me on my website as well, which I'll talk about a little later. And was there another question, William?
No, there was a question, but it was directed to another individual and that individual answered the question. So that's kind of cool that you guys are using the chat to go back and forth. Thank you for doing that. It was a question on the point of sale systems and that was shared. So, I mean, if you guys want to talk about that by unmuting yourself, please, by all means, just share that information if you want to, if you're comfortable doing that.
Hey, this is Aisha Thompson. I'm the one who replied to the POS, but just to be clear, I wasn't the person that it was directed to, but I did, the person who does the spices and teas, I thought her feedback that she shared on data analytics was very insightful. And I previously had a business that I started at a farmer's market, and I used my POS system was Square, which
She disconnected.
I don't know what happened. Aisha, you there?
But the POS system, maybe I'm going to continue on Aisha's point, that the Square POS system actually collects all of that data for you. So there are many cloud-based programs that collect that data for you. The thing is that you need to gather it as well. So choosing your POS system is really important because you want to make sure that you go for a network that you can sync with your system so you can send out emails. Because a lot of the time these services, you can't actually put that information on your database. You use their platform, so it's on their database, but then if you stop using them, you lose that information. So as you do business and you use these programs, recording that information is very important. You can record it in a few different ways. You can use a POS system that automatically does that in your own system, which some of them exist. Or if you're using something like Square, every time you use it, figure out a way to make sure that it gets onto another computer. You know, have a little computer there, and then take that down again in your own database.
So I would love to share something that I would have to say an intern of mine, I'd have to give them credit for it, but it was a code, you know, a scan, if you will. So I used a couple of picture frames and put one at each end of the counter. And if you put if you, the customer, put your cell phone up to this scan, it scans directly to my Instagram site.
There you go.
So, yeah. I don't know what you call that scan, but it's a little square.
The QR
Yeah,
code.
QR
So you're
code.
Yes.
putting QR codes on things. Which
Yes,
is actually
QR
a very
codes.
key point.
Yes.
QR codes are very important. Thank you, Angela. QR codes are very important because right now people just don't want to touch things. There's a pandemic. They'd rather just, you know, I see I say Kathy. I see your name is Dave on the thing, but I think your name is Kathy, but you're like waving your head, yes. And it's true. QR codes are very key right now. Having at every, you know, everything, your business cards, and at the entrance of your restaurant and at each table, you should have that so people can just go and click in and order themselves. And then it's already integrated with some sort of payment system so they can even pay from their phones, which is really, really great.
Is Aisha back? Can you hear us, Aisha? Ooh, okay. Cool. No, I just thought she would finish her thought on
Yeah.
that.
Does anyone else have any questions?
If I can add to what Angela and yourself, Carolina, were saying about data. One of the things that we saw at the beginning of the onset of the shutdowns back in almost a year ago now, through the pandemic, was a lot of businesses needed to pivot. This is what Carolina's talking about. You had to really pivot. Now, the advantage of pivoting is understanding your client base. And if you don't understand your client base, you have a hard time pivoting, because your client base, the people that buy from you, they're telling you, the market is speaking to your business. This is what we want. This is what we like, because we're giving you money for it. So if you don't have a system to actually capture that information, the who, the what, the where, the why, the how, and you don't have any kind of basic data, you're going to be in trouble. So there were a few food industry, like restaurants in the Bowie area, that could have remained open. All you had to do was say, okay, what are your customers like? How do you analyze that data? And I can tell you, some restaurants just didn't have any data. They didn't know who their customers were in terms of a CRM. So it's extremely advantageous to do a data analysis, but have good data. Set up the right data requirements for your specific business, and test that and analyze that data. Like what Angela said, she knew exactly what time of day, what kind of food, what day of the week people were eating. And if you can break it down to that time, that is huge, because that has downstream impacts on your bottom line revenue and profit and business operations as well. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. You definitely want to have something like that.
Well, that's really the having some of the most common problems that I see in most food establishments is actually that sometimes you just don't have systems. There are companies that have existed for a longer time, or maybe systems are a little bit outdated. So making sure that you're always in that new technology is really important. Again, whenever somebody needs assistance with that, I recommend you can go to my website, or you can reach out to me, and I work a lot with cloud-based integration, which is where we try to put together something where you're using the technology, but we're constantly studying what's the new program that's here. Not me personally, but I work with people who do that. But that's really important. The larger companies typically, they have that in-house, or, that's the type of thing that does cost a pretty large investment.
We have a question from the gentleman with the iPad 3. I'm sorry, I forget your name.
That's 3.
No, I just wanted to add up to what you said. At the beginning of the pandemic last year, I do POS systems, like I say, credit card processing. And majority of the Latino restaurants that I had, they were for years denying the integrations to online ordering. And I've been telling them, you need a POS system that will gather customers' information, that will give you information about demographics, and things like that. And for years, and last year between March and August, that is what I did full time, just online integrations to POS systems, and helping them get their analytics together, understanding their analytics, because we do provide a platform that does pretty much everything from timekeeping when your employees go in, to scheduling, and you can internally communicate with your employees and change shifts, and to the POS system that does credit card processing, and it consolidates all the services in one umbrella, which is the company I do business with. But having an online presence is a key factor right now, as it was maybe 2 years ago.
So thank you. And actually for you, your opportunity, you just found it, that Latino market, they need that information pretty dire. There are a lot of other types of companies, that have been able to kind of keep up with that information. But the Latino market, a lot of those types of businesses are pretty behind. So I encourage you to reach out to me, because I know a lot of businesses that need that sort of bilingual service, or that bilingual help is so important. So please reach out to me, because actually they really actually need you. So again, networking is so important for just looking for opportunity, right? And you just did that. So that's probably one of the most important things you can do during a pandemic. So please reach out to me about that. I'll share my contact information, but I think, what do you think, William, will they have it? But this is my contact information,
That's fine.
my email, my website, and my Instagram handle.
All right, don't move it. I'm gonna take a picture of it.
Yeah.
Well, we're also going to have these slides. We're also recording this webinar. We're going to have the slides as well uploaded to the website that Pauline's going to mention at the end of the webinar.
Okay. So
But
I know that was a lot, and that was a kind of coming from many angles. And my main intention today was to build a dialogue, because recognizing opportunity and thriving in a pandemic is right now about dialogue. We're in a pandemic, and this is a time where the restaurant industry and the food industry is facing so many big shifts that there's not really a person that knows it all. And there's a ton of information out there, and you're probably getting a lot of aligned information. So keeping that conversation alive and feeling comfortable enough to talk to one another and say, oh, I can, work with you for this opportunity. And identifying those things is really important. And then Monique said that if you're connected with SBDC, can you contact me through SBDC? Yes, you can. I work with the DC SBDC, but there are many SBDC counselors all over the United States. So I always recommend go to your local Small Business Development Center. Know your resources. So your local Small Business Development Center is there to help you, and they will help you with anything you need. So we also work together. So if there's somebody that might be, in another SBDC office that might be an expert or have more experience in some side. For example, a lot of the time I like to work with, coach with certain kind of businesses or with other business owners in the business planning side. So we kind of adjust to what you need at the SBDC, just to make sure that you get all the help you need to be able to move forward in your business. All right.
I think Monique, are you in Maryland? Yes, right?
Yes, yes.
I think Louise, didn't you mention you were an SBDC counselor in Annapolis?
Yes, and Arundel
well,
County. Yeah.
There you go.
There you
So
Yeah.
Monique, there's a direct contact for you right there.
Yeah, so I have an SBD counselor,
Okay.
but I really just want someone who has that restaurant experience, and so that's what I've been challenged with, finding the SBD a counselor with their restaurant experience.
Okay, well, you can actually, so did you get my website and my email address?
Yes, I did.
Great, so then,
Lab House.
Yes.
Okay, got you.
oh, right,
All right.
perfect. So yeah, thank you for that, Monique. And yeah, a lot of, or I don't know if that many chefs are consultants, but I do team up with different chefs with different experiences. But I have a lot of restaurant experience as well. So I really, there's not really a scenario that I haven't cooked in. And the thing is, whenever you're working with restaurants, you do want to make sure that you have that experience in the kitchen and that chef side of it. And that's really what my niche is usually from the kitchen side expertise. So please feel free to email me, because we can work together to figure something out for you.
And Carolina, that's actually a great distinction you just made between the chef and I'll make it easy, the chef and anyone who's not a chef. So could you probably explain to the folks, and this is also for the webinar, explain the difference between when someone says, I'm a chef, what does that look like? What does that entail? What is a chef in terms of, because people say I'm a chef and they think cooking, but it's not. And how could you expand on that?
Yeah, definitely. A chef creates the dishes and innovates within the menu, but the chef is in charge of making sure that whatever business profits off of the food. So the chef is the manager and the person that's making sure that whatever the chef develops a menu or develops the recipes and delegates it to the chef de cuisine, which is the chef in the kitchen, that delegates it to the rest of the team. So you have the executive chef, which is the one who makes sure that you're profiting off of your food. And that's kind of the overarching business side. So if you're going to have a restaurant and you don't have that chef experience, hire an executive chef to advise you on how you're going to make money off of your food. Because the chef de cuisine is the execution. The chef de cuisine is in charge of execution, and the sous chef helps the chef de cuisine with the execution, right? And then you have the cooks. So you have a very big difference between a cook, someone who is being instructed how to do something and producing it, to the person who's conceptualizing it. So whenever you're doing your hiring in any restaurant or you're looking for a consultant, make sure that that person is an executive chef, someone who knows how to profit off of the food, someone who knows purchasing, how to manage inventory, how to market their food. That's all very, very important. And then chefs kind of like, you have all kinds of chefs at that point. You have different cultures, you have different styles of food and different price points. So you just find the person who specializes in whatever niche. I tend to I like the general side. I like to work with many, many different kinds of businesses. So my experience is in being an executive chef, but in the restaurant level and then in the distribution level, there are very, very different types of recipe development that's done. I hope that answered your question. Did it answer your question? I think so. Yeah,
But
sorry.
yeah, I mean, it's always good to understand the nuance between what the general public perceives what a chef is and someone who owns a restaurant. There are different levels because, especially like in your field, a chef looks at the operations of the restaurant and they look at a whole bunch of other things, not just the food part of it, but there is an internal operations there that a chef takes care of. So, as an analogy, if you look at McDonald's, you think of, it's a bad analogy because it's fast food, but we'll just use that for now. McDonald's is the chef manages everything in there, but the cook just cooks the fries. So if you want someone to help you with your business, you would go to the chef, for example. So because they know all the operations, they know all the profit and loss and gross profit margins for each plate and each meal, things like that. So it's always good to look at those distinctions as well.
Yeah, especially because the chef knows the kitchen and knows how to manage, not just the food, but the equipment and all the other components of the kitchen. I mean, that's really very important because you get constant curveballs like every day with different types of situations. So it's very difficult to I don't really know of another type of person with the necessary training to handle so many issues. So what a broad spectrum. I mean, you have like electrical knowledge, refrigeration knowledge, a safety, bacteria, all kinds of different things. And then the food side is only a certain percentage of all of that training that you have to go through.
There's just one real quick plug. If you really want to get into something, because Carolina also knows a lot about the history of food as well. But on the History Channel, there's a running show now that's called The Food That Built America. It's quite a great show to look at, just to kind of get an understanding of just basic stuff that happened way back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s with just like the chocolate industry or the pizza development of the pizza industry. I know Kathy's laughing because that's one of her favorite foods, but but it's a real great look into what's also happening in the food industry and the history of it as well. So there's so much stuff that's out there that you have access to. So take advantage of those opportunities.
Today, I said maybe I overstated something earlier to my neighbor where I said that I think that this pandemic is going to make the impact maybe like what the Industrial Revolution did to the food industry. I probably overstated that, and I'm curious to know what happens. Because when you look at the food industry right now, you have so many people struggling and so many people trying to identify what shifts they're going to take, that this is a very interesting time. Like, it's just, there's such an unknown to know what's going to become of the industry. You have a lot of people who think that once the pandemic is passed or people get vaccinated, then everything's going to go back to normal. But then you have a whole nother plethora of people who believe that everyone's going to be at home all the time and things are very different. And I'm not a psychic and I'm not a fortune teller. And I'm here in this with you just as you're living it. So we all, are in this together, and we're all identifying all of these shifts at the same time. And the most important part is just, riding and playing with the opportunity. That's really important. So that's why I was so glad to see people, talking on the chat saying, okay, I need a kitchen space, you have a kitchen space, or I have POS systems and I'm bilingual. Like, let people know what you're doing. And so I'm very glad that you did that, because I mean, if you even get just that out of today's webinar, then that's worth it, because that's what the intention was to make sure that during the pandemic, you're identifying opportunity and you're getting the assistance that you need in order to work with that opportunity and thrive rather than be reactive. Right. So are there any other unique stories or things that you might have questions about related to the pandemic and yeah, whatever you might be going through right now and looking for a shift for change?
So at the same time as we wait for those questions, could you put up your contact information, Carolina, as your slide and just leave that up for a few minutes so people can copy that?
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the best way to reach you, right? Carolina at foodbizmentor.com.
Yeah, that's the best way. And I also post a lot on my Instagram. So that's a very important one. I have a funny story where I was going through a very interesting personal shift in life. And actually, William Lindsay here was, someone who told me, keep moving forward, kick ass, and take names later. And that's all he said to me. And whenever I told him what I was going through, and that was very interesting to me because I was like, you know what? I do have to kick ass and take names later. And maybe that type of experience right now, which we're living, which is the pandemic, this is that time where you have to just do that. You have to identify different opportunities and just like push forward and keep pushing forward and look for those opportunities and try to figure out, based on your research and data that you've collected, what's the best thing for you. But the most important step is taking a step forward. That's another thing that I've noticed a lot in the pandemic is, this is something that's very mental. It's something that we're all going through that can sometimes be a little bit emotionally draining and exhausting. And, sometimes I seem like, such a positive or heightened person, but we all have our big dips, right? We all have our times where we're like, whoa, that was tough, or wow. And we're all going through that. This is the reality of the situation. So waking up and working or doing something to move forward each day is very important. You all know that because you're here in this webinar. And so that's, clearly shows that you see the value in that. But I like to repeat it and repeat it again and again, because again, lots of people out there, lots of clients out there that sometimes might lose a little bit of hope. And that takes your mind off of the game. It takes your mind off of what it is that you have to go out and achieve. So make sure that you're working on yourself and taking care of yourself so you can take care of your business and you can take care of others, because your business employs others. So yeah, that's why my name is Chef Kickass, is because of Coach here, when back then was like, Carolina, you just need to kick ass and take names later. So I changed my Instagram handle to Chef Kickass, and that's where you can find me.
Cool. I didn't know you were going to share that story. Thank you.
Well,
I
for
appreciate
these
it.
webinars, is something that's very important, is for me, is to keep it real. And that's another big reason my name is like that. And chefs, classically chefs, we don't sugarcoat things, we keep it real. And I just tell you, I share the good and the bad, but it's because in the restaurant industry, especially, you can learn a lot from both spectrums, right?
Cool. Well, I guess with that, I think if there's no questions or comments, let's go ahead and say thank you to Carolina for doing this. We've been planning this for, my gosh, a long time. And we have another webinar coming up with Carolina in the second section that we talked about, which is June 3rd. I think Carolina will be on again. But you'll see the marketing for that. We'll definitely share this information again to the chamber. And again, this is recorded, so just go back to the chamber website and take a look. So with that, I am going to share my screen.
I also want to say that since I am, we are in this shift, please follow me on Instagram and DM me if there's a certain topic that you want to hear about. as far as a pandemic solution, because the food industry is so wide, so vast, that if there's a thing that specifically is important to your business, I'm trying to collect all of that information to try to do things that are more targeted. But I can only do that with your help. So if you could please just also email me or DM me, tell me, Carolina, I need to learn about this. Great, let's do it. I'll schedule, I'll do a webinar. If there's enough people who are asking for that same subject, I'll do a webinar and invite you to it as well.
Cool, thank you. Great opportunity for everyone. So take advantage of that. So in closing, before I turn it over to Pauline, again, remember, this is a programmatic approach to building the businesses here in the Bowie area. So next week, we will have, actually next to wrong date, I'm sorry, but next week on March the 4th, we will have Dr. Terry Levine. She's going to be getting into some serious topics about, looking at qualified leads and how to sort of create your marketing funnel per se, and how to use and integrate advertising into your business. She's high energy. She has a wealth of experience in doing this, and this is all she does. And she travels throughout much of the world doing this, doing webinars and seminars, and working with different companies and doing these type of business expansion and marketing. So definitely come back next week, March the 4th, and take advantage of the next webinar. So I just want to say again, thank you for everyone who was here. After this webinar and all this food conversation, I am hungry now, as probably most of you are, so I'm going to get some food. But before we leave, I want to turn it over to Pauline of the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. If you could take a moment and answer the exit poll question. Another informative webinar by 1917. I want to thank you, Carolina, again for your time and your knowledge. And thank you, William. And now more than ever, we need business plans, strategies, and the ability to pivot. So again, if you could take a few moments, and I don't know how I ended up doing that, but there we go. Answer the poll questions. That would be very helpful. Y'all have a great evening. We'll see you next week.